All right. All right. Do I have Tanisha or Jessica today? Tanisha, are you on yet today?
Hi, Commissioner Sally.
Hey, Commissioner Coy, how are you?
Good. Yes, doing well. I'll be off camera for a little bit, but
Okay.
no problem right
And Commissioner Esposito, do we have you just yet? Not yet. So we just need a couple minutes until we get everybody here this afternoon.
Commissioner Sally, I do see Commissioner Esposito's on now as well.
Oh, fantastic. And Jess, are you on board today too? We may not have Jessica today, but that's all right. Commissioner Esposito, you joined?
Yes, yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. Well, great. I want to start off by welcoming everybody to our April 18th Policy Committee meeting today. We have a pretty compact agenda today. It's not as lengthy as last time, but there's nevertheless some really good topics that we're going to dive into. Before we start today, I do want to take just some time to reflect on our last meeting that we had. A couple of key things I just want to lift up. So one of the things that just want to share for both the public and my fellow commissioners is in my role as the acting chair of the policy committee is I have both a duty and obligation to ensure that we are creating a space where we're able to really conduct the full duties in the policy committee on the policy formation process. And so I take very seriously like upholding a space where there is the professional standards that we should hold all of ourselves accountable for in the course of the meeting. As well, want to ensure that the public has an opportunity to provide thoughts and input throughout the process. And so one of the things that we'll need to ensure that we do is that we keep the questions that we do have limited to two. I'm asking that my fellow board colleagues who have additional questions, that those are sent to staff of the presenters that we have. That'll allow us to ensure that we're not rushing through public comment today or in the future as well. So I think that's what we have here at the top of the hour. Are there any questions or comments before we dive in? All right. Okay. So we've got our first policy today is IGE curriculum. It's new regulations on media and library services, tier 1. So I'll turn it over to the staff who's leading today's presentation.
Okay, I guess that's me. Jonathan, am I sharing my screen or will you share it from your view?
Sorry, give me 1 minute.
I mean, I'm happy to. I just
Yeah,
have the
if
PDF
you-
version.
If you could drive the PowerPoint, that'd be great.
Sure. All right, hopefully now you, whoops, you probably cannot. Oh yeah, you should be able to see my screen now.
It's perfect.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacy Davis. I'm the coordinator for library media and instructional technology, and I'm very excited to share with you this afternoon Administrative Regulation IGE-RB, which is the school library media program. As we go through today, and I apologize, I'm working from the PDF version and not the slide version, but as we go through today's slides, we're going to talk through the alignment of the regulation with district and state priorities. We'll give some context around our current library media program. We'll talk about this specific regulation and then what our next steps are. So just as we like to do, we are aligned with our board strategic priorities, and you can see the ones that are highlighted are the ones that we feel are directly aligned with this regulation. And then in terms of our district goals, you can see that this regulation supports all three goals. And then in terms of the R3 plan, this particular regulation really supports acceleration in the idea of providing high quality instructional materials to students. So let's start by talking about the benefits of a school library. There's a lot of research around how impactful a strong school library media program is for student achievement. And in 26 states, there were studies that showed that in school districts with a strong program, there was higher student achievement on standardized tests. A lot of that has to do with ensuring that there are a wide variety of materials that represent all students, especially in communities that are of high poverty, because having access to a robust collection of books in the school library can mitigate some of the impacts of poverty on home libraries or libraries that are not necessarily available in homes. Another factor that really contributes to that successful student achievement is the idea of learning and teaching in collaboration with the librarian. So classroom teachers collaborating with the librarian to ensure that there are additional books for students to read, and there are opportunities for students to do some research as well. And then also for the librarian to share current trends and resources with teachers that help elevate instruction. Lastly, we want to point out that our school libraries should be, and we want them to be, safe and nurturing places where students feel like they are represented and they can find themselves in the space, and they can go there to do activities that really foster critical thinking. And we'll talk about some of the makerspace activities that we're doing and introducing as we go through this presentation. So we also wanted to take a minute at the beginning to highlight some of our partners and programs that we're currently working with and implementing in our libraries. So we have the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation, the Enoch Pratt Library, Heart of America, T. Rowe Price, Maryland Humanities, the Reginald F. Lewis Museum, and then College of Notre Dame of Maryland with a new Master's in Library Services cohort in order to help with recruiting. So those are just a few of the partners that we work with. In terms of programming that's happening now, we're working on more makerspace activities and materials in our libraries. We just concluded the One Book Baltimore program, which was another success this year. We've had a nice variety of author visits throughout the district, and we've had visits with the Pratt, both having our librarians go to the central branch and then having schools go to Pratt local branches as well. I did want to call out our partnership with the Weinberg Foundation. On this slide, you'll see all of the schools that have had library transformations through the Weinberg partnership. There are 16 schools that have already been transformed since 2012. And then moving forward and looking forward in 24, 25, 25, and 26, we have 4 additional schools that we will bring online with the Weinberg Foundation. Just keeping in mind that this is truly a partnership where the Weinberg Foundation funds a part of the library transformation, and the rest comes from capital funds and local funds. We also want to highlight and call out our author visits that I mentioned earlier. You'll see here on this slide a list of some of the authors that have come to Baltimore City Schools this year. And through our partnership with the Pratt, We have been promised that anytime the Pratt has a young adult or juvenile author coming to visit at the Pratt, they'll also ensure that they can set up a visit at least one city school site so that students can interact and talk with that author as well. And so these are the ones that we've had come so far. We have some additional author visits scheduled in April and May. So let's take a second then and talk about the context of where we are with our school libraries. So we are looking really at collection, staffing, funding, and then a new process of reconsideration. But starting with collections, our librarians every year complete the Maryland annual survey of school libraries, where they provide data around their particular library site. And one of the things that they provide data around is the age of the collection. And you can see on this slide, our average publication date is the year 2000. I actually have a child who was born in the year 2000, and she has experienced 9/11. She's experienced the first Black American president. She's experienced electric vehicles for the first time. She's experienced a global pandemic. And if she were to walk into some of our libraries, unfortunately, she would not find herself and her history in our libraries. So one of our focuses is working to make sure that our library collections are brought up to date. We want to make sure that our students see themselves, see the experiences that they live every day in our school libraries. So that's one of our focus areas. We are also focused on staffing. The position of school librarian is a critical shortage area. Currently, 73 of our 164 schools have a school librarian on staff. We are working with local universities, specifically with College of Notre Dame of Maryland, to ensure that there are cohorts where we can recruit and move more teachers through and into the library program, because what we've found is that a teacher librarian is really the best staffing option for our school libraries. The other critical area that we're focused on is funding. We have had inconsistent funding across the district for our school libraries. The budget guidance that we provide for schools every year recommends a minimum of $2,500 per school library for collection, development, and materials. And that is really inconsistently provided to our school libraries each year. So we want to make sure that we're focused on that as well. And then the last part, which is kind of a newer thing for us, is this reconsideration policy. Nationally and in the state of Maryland, we're seeing more requests to pull books from shelves or to reconsider whether or not a book belongs in a library. And while we haven't really had this happen to us in Baltimore City, we want to make sure that when it does happen, because we are fairly convinced in this political climate it will happen, we want to make sure that we have a good process and policy in place to address those. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth as we get through the slides. So we're going to dig into that regulation now, and you'll see that it is grounded in Maryland law. So COMAR does have requirements for school library media programs, including staffing and reporting. And we talked about that in terms of recruitment, and we talked about that in terms of the annual report that our librarians submit every year. We have situated this regulation within the curriculum policy, and we've done that specifically to highlight that school library media programs are integral to the city schools curriculum and the essential functions of a school. So this particular regulation and some minor revisions to policy IGE will replace the current board rule on school libraries. And as I mentioned, those revisions to policy IGE are very small and minor. They are highlighting the importance of the library media program, and then we've added 2 definitions. And I'm not going to read these to you, but you do have them in your copy of the slides and in that regulation. We also wanted to make sure that we were well aligned with the equity policy ADA, in that books, titles, and programming will reflect diverse student populations and allow students to find representation within the libraries. So we want to make sure that collections are equitable and culturally relevant. We want to make sure that our students have opportunities to thrive in academic programming, and we want to make sure that the budgets and scheduling and staffing are offer robust experiences for our students, and that we have cross-curricular connections within the library. So in terms of the major sections of IGE-RB, we have our purpose, our programming, the evaluation and selection of materials, and then that reconsideration process that I discussed a minute ago. So this is our purpose. We wanted to make sure that our school libraries foster curiosity. They teach students to appreciate the power of information and that they are an integral part of City Schools curriculum. We want students to feel safe, nurtured, and supported in this space. In terms of programming, we are looking to ensure and to codify that every school has a library media program in accordance with Maryland law. So they need to make sure that they have an organized collection of materials. The libraries need to emphasize, the librarians should be emphasizing information literacy skills as they're teaching, and that we want to make sure that we have as many certified teacher librarians in place as we can, and have a backup plan for those situations where we don't have a librarian available at the school. Then in terms of programming, we want to ensure that our library programming is aligned with the curriculum and providing those important literacy skills. We want to make sure that all of our school libraries develop a schedule and that they're accessible to students and staff throughout the day. So the principal should be working with the librarian to create that schedule. Again, aligning these with other board policies and regulations, and then making sure and codifying the fact that schools are required to collect and maintain data about their library, and then also to highlight the partnerships that are so important to our library programs. And just in terms of what's coming in our school libraries, started a big push for makerspace in our libraries. So we have been working with the GAL team, provide for our librarians all kinds of gear that will help make a makerspace in their library. And we've done it based on grade level. So our K-8 librarians are getting a different set of materials than our high school librarians, because the activities and the curriculum that they use for that will be very different. We've also started a stronger partnership with the AP research courses. We want to make sure that our librarians, especially our high school librarians, are teaching AP research, because it really does align perfectly with information literacy and with research skills. We've also started an ebook central library, thinking about our students in the virtual program and home and hospital, making sure that students have access to titles and items from the library, no matter where they are, whether they're in a physical school or whether they're at home. So we have purchased a set of ebooks that are available to all students. We've also introduced some shared reading programs where we have our high school students walking to a local school to read to younger students. So they're calling it book buddies in some cases. And then again, those ongoing author visits. Most importantly, we want to really highlight in this regulation that our school library media program supports all learners. So regardless of their academics, their disabilities, their language that they speak, doesn't matter. We want to make sure that all students can find themselves and feel supported and nurtured in our school libraries. Part of the critical piece with that is staffing. And as we mentioned, we are currently understaffed in our school libraries, but working on recruiting. We've actually made great headways through our partnership with Human Capital this year to ensure that we have more teacher librarians moving into the library positions at schools. So we want to make sure that those teacher librarians are certified, that they're teaching information literacy, that they're trained to circulate books and manage their collection. We're asking that they complete a collection development plan every year so that they're always thinking about what should be in their library and what's appropriate for their particular students. And then also teaching research skills in collaboration with content teachers. For those schools that don't have that trained teacher librarian, we're asking principals to designate someone to circulate books or to think about putting a substitute in for short time periods when the librarian can't be there. And then again, those efforts to increase the certified available staff, so cohorts, and then collaboration with HC partners. This regulation also really codifies some of the process for evaluation, selection, and maintenance of materials. So the academics office will set those guidelines around what should be in the library and develop a core list of library materials. And then schools will have the opportunity to purchase from that core list, as well as to purchase additional resources that really reflect the population of their school. And then we want to make sure that we're providing opportunities for students, families, and staff to provide suggestions for what should go into the library. We also have assigned some criteria for selection of library media materials, including curriculum alignment, the age, grade, and developmental level of students, cultural responsiveness, and a variety of viewpoints, and then as well as interests and needs of the broad cross-section of students at each school. And then most importantly, we want these books to be high quality. I talked briefly about the reconsideration process, and this is a really important piece for us as members of the team who are working with school librarians. We have districts in the state of Maryland that are seeing requests for reconsideration. I know that Frederick has, I think, 2 books right now that they're trying to reevaluate in terms of whether or not they belong on a shelf. So we wanted to make sure that we had a policy and process in place that would give a stakeholder the opportunity to share that they don't believe that a particular book should be on the shelf, and then have a codified process to review that, make a decision, and all of this, while all of this happens, that book would stay on the shelf, and we would provide an appeals process for anyone who doesn't agree with the committee's decision. So it would be an ad hoc committee that will review the title and then come back to the CAO with a decision. Next steps in this process, we're ready to engage stakeholders and the community to give them an opportunity to take a look at this regulation and provide some feedback. We're going to support schools in their budgeting for library media specialists and for collection items. We're going to make sure that those collection guidance documents and resources are available to our staff. And then also to continue to work with our school libraries to provide professional development. And then as we talk about stakeholder engagement, this slide just highlights the organizations that we're going to reach out to send the policy to for feedback. And that's it. Questions or concerns?
Right, fantastic. Commissioner Esposito. Thank you, and thank you so much, Ms. Davis. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Is there any details about like what the committee structure is for the reconsideration process?
Yeah, we the way that we designed or are designing that committee, it would consist of district staff, librarians, and I believe we said community as well, but we were going to limit the community members so that we don't get into any kind of political leanings one way or the other. And so but we want to make it as transparent as possible.
Okay. And are sorry, like a follow-up question. Are you sorry, are you going to put anything in there to like ensure that the representation on the committee is like representative of multiple, like not necessarily political viewpoints, but like experiences and identities, so that they can like have a because I always go to thinking like if somebody's not at the table, possibly like I wouldn't want, you know, other people to not see value in a book that they would see value in.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't necessarily selected the exact specific members of this committee. We wanted to kind of get through this process first, but I think that's really important. We really wanted to make sure that that group of people does come from a variety of backgrounds with a variety of viewpoints, so that we are looking really critically at titles and making decisions that are in the best interest of students. And to make sure that the whole process is transparent, so that everybody feels like it's done for the best interest of students, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. And then I just have one more question. So for the books that are existing in libraries, like, are those books going to be available as ebooks too? I'm somebody that uses text to voice software, and so like just for accessibility needs, and like my mind goes to that, like, having an ebook that's like readable by like software, and also like if there is any equipment that has like video or audio having open captioning. Has anybody had any discussions about that?
We have not discussed that. The books that we're currently putting into our eBook Central Library are on Overdrive, and so if you have a phone or an iPad or a device that can download the Overdrive app, then you can access those books. And I apologize because I haven't read any of our ebooks, so I'm going to lean on Brooke and Emmanuel. I think that those do have some accessibility tools. I don't think that we are going to have every book that's on our core collection as an ebook, just because of funding and school-based decision. But if schools want to purchase those, we will help them through Overdrive and SOAR, who are our partners who do that. So I think that's a great idea that we need to maybe dig into a little bit more. But resource-wise, I don't know that we can necessarily put every book out as an ebook.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Commissioner Esposito. Commissioner Coy?
Yeah, no, I appreciate this, and thank you for the presentation. One sort of encouragement, and then my question. Encouragement is, as you think about those committees, think of invoice and student participation in those. I think is a really important stakeholder in the conversation. My question, though, relates to partnering with Enoch Pratt Free Library, and specifically with, I guess, the equivalent of a dual enrollment, if you will, that students get library cards as a matter of course. And I'm curious, what is the policy and the practice relating to our students also getting, in a very simple way, library cards at the Enoch Pratt Library?
Yep. So we do a lot of work with the Pratt, and we've had lots of conversations with them around library cards. And currently, and again, I'm going to rely on Brooke and Emmanuel, who are in, boots on the ground, to tell me if I'm wrong in going through the process. But the teacher can go to they can sign students up for their library card. We're also in the very, very initial exploration of, talking with the Pratt about some kind of one card type of ID or code where they could use their ID card as also their library card. And again, that's very, very initial, and we haven't really had the opportunity this year to really dig into that conversation. It is something that the Pratt has expressed interest in, and something that I know when we had a charm card earlier a couple of years ago, we could have done more easily. So we have to really look into what that entails and what the cost of that would be. But we definitely work with our librarians to make sure that they work with the Pratt to get library cards for their students.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Coy. I just have one question. So when I was looking at the actual written policy in IGE, I just want to make sure that we understand that that this encompasses just all of the thinking that you guys have put together in today's presentation. So in terms of the committee structure, does that need to be reflected in policy, or am I overlooking that? Are there other components that need to be baked in and weaved in as well to make sure that this is as robust as possible?
We've tried to ensure that the regulation was completely aligned to, or that the PowerPoint, I'm sorry, was completely aligned to the regulation. And we didn't outline the full committee information in that regulation, but we do have it in our library handbook, which we give to librarians every year electronically, and they can, we can certainly put that piece of information into the regulation if that's a recommendation. Otherwise, we can make sure, librarians know where that is in their handbook.
What would be helpful, I guess, before this may go to the full board, is to maybe step back and look at what would be the pros and cons about whether that belongs best within the handbook or best within regulation.
Okay.
And maybe sharing that back out would be very helpful.
Okay, great.
Right.
Feedback.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Davis. I really appreciate the presentation and entertaining our questions this afternoon.
Thank you.
And thank you to your staff, the hard work that they're doing at City Schools. All right. So moving forward in our agenda, I think we're ready to take a look at compliance reports. So we have two today. So policy IHCAB, which is access to an appropriate physical education program. So I want to give my board colleagues any opportunity to raise any questions they may have about the details of the compliance report. I'm so sorry, am I still waking up at 4:30? It's been a long day. Any questions regarding the content of CAB?
No questions for me.
Commissioner Esposito?
For me.
All right, great. And then our second one, which is JIH, which is school administrative seizures. Are there any questions regarding any of the contents in this policy or compliance report? Commissioner Coy?
I didn't have specific questions about the compliance report, but I do want to spend some time at some point, maybe not right here, knowing your early instructions about keeping questions limited to just some of the general practices and policies. So I'll follow up with the questions you on offline.
Yeah, that would be helpful in terms of following up directly. Actually, if you can send those to board staff, just as per the policy and decorum of the committee, just send that directly to board staff. They'll make sure that gets over directly to city school staff for a response. Okay. So public comment. So Tanisha, do you receive any public comment this afternoon?
Mr. Chair, it's Dewana, and we did receive any public comment this afternoon.
Okay, fantastic. Great. So there's no public comment. I think that takes us to the end of our very abbreviated agenda today, not as lengthy. So moving forward, our next meeting is May 6th. That will be a much longer agenda. So we'll be looking at GBN, which is an appointment assignment for probation, election to 10-year resident. Later in summer 2023, so the public cat, and then policy IGE. This is curriculum, new regulations on media library services as well. Actually, we covered that today. That should not be reappearing next week. So I think that will, actually, I just want to make sure that there's no other general public comment out there today before we conclude. Hearing that there is none, we'll go ahead and adjourn for this afternoon. I want to thank my board colleagues for joining, as well as the public, the work of city school staff, the meeting today. So thanks so much, everybody. And join us at 6 p.m. for the budget forum overview this afternoon. You guys have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.